Gladisa Guadalupe is from the Cleveland Ballet. She is the artistic director, and she's going to speak about an interesting production of Alice that was choreographed in 2018, I believe, and talk about some of the artistic decisions that went into making that and how it relates to the books. So,
thank you. Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody. Everybody's had their lunch and everybody has a full stomach, right? We're still eating. That's good. All right. So, like Arnold said, I am co-founder and artistic director of Cleveland Ballet. We're entering our 9th season right now. So when we started, my husband and I, Dr. Michael Krasnyansky and myself, when we started preparing for our seasons, one of the colleagues of mine that I worked with when I was about 17 years old, I met her, Margo Sappington, and there was something about her that I really enjoyed, her creative process. A little American-born, but very, very out there. So when I decided let's do Alice, we called her. I said, and we met in New York, and I said, I want Alice. I want it to be an hour, and I want it to be out of the box, because I don't want to do everything the same. So she said, of course. How are we going to do this? The first thing that we talked about was music. We were not going to compose music or commission music for this production. We were going to use music already that audiences will recognize right away. What are we going to do the story? How are we going to do the story? How are we going to develop it artistically? So we started talking, and we came up with the idea of a circus. So it is preparing, the artists are preparing to go into their show in a circle, in a ring. So how do we start the production? By putting all the characters on stage. Holding the teapot, which was massive, holding flowers, which were massive, holding the hat, which massive, holding the how you call this when you smoke? Hookah. The hookah, which was massive. All that at the beginning when it starts. And then we started taking those characters off the stage. That's how we started the production. Once the stage was empty from all the characters, we find Alice reading a book. She sees butterflies, which they were massive butterflies, held by sugarcane sticks and dancers holding them. She follows these butterflies, and then she falls into the hole. And that's where she follows the butterflies who find the rabbit. She follows the rabbit, and we go into the hole. How do we go into the hole? We're in the theater, so we actually bring the curtains up, and you see her falling down. So we started talking about the whole sequence of events. We jumped from one scene to the other. We didn't do it in order. How are we going to do the crying? Simple. We're going to have a big silk blue, 4 male dancers in each corner, moving the water. Okay, Tweedledee and Tweedledum. How are we going to do that? We're going to put them underneath the water, and the water goes away. There they are. So we started creating something that that made sense. How are we going to make the sizes go little and large? We brought a little student that ate the cookie. We brought a taller dancer that drank, and that's how we started developing the story with the idea of the circus. All right. The tea party, it had to be massive. It cannot be little because we're on the stage. So the teacups were big and cut in half so that you can actually see them. The table was huge. So we have the big hat. He was wearing a huge hat. We had the dormouse with a little tutu looking like a mouse. So we started creating this to the point that we had everything. And I said, how are we going to do the cards? And she looked at me and said, I don't know. I said, well, we're going to have the students from little to tall following the Queen of Hearts. How we're going to, so we started going back and forth. When we got to and then of course we had live music for certain things. And we started putting the sequence together. We did not encounter difficulties. I have to admit that. We did not, because we already knew how we were going to do this on stage with dancers. And we had the whole cast. We had the flowers in the garden. We had bumblebees. They were all dancers. So we had the rose, the iris, the daisies, the pansies. We had all of that. And of course, you know, the most important thing was the rabbit. For us, it was not Alice. It was more the rabbit, because the rabbit went throughout the whole story, and Alice followed the rabbit throughout the whole story. So we begin the story with Alice falling asleep, falling into the hole, and we end up with Alice falling asleep. She wakes up, she goes away, and we see the little girl, where the rabbit picks up the little girl and gets off the stage. So we do follow the story, but it was more, I wanted more to appeal. I didn't want it to have it too long. So we did it for an hour, and it was one thing after the other. As we continue discussing the story, the same thing with the caterpillar. How are we going to become the caterpillar into a butterfly? But we had the caterpillar right after their dance. We covered them in a red silk. The silk opens up, and there's a huge butterfly that a dancer is carrying. The dancer that is carrying the big butterfly is the tall Alice. So we use all the characters, and we figure out a way to showcase the sizes. When she finds the doors, the same thing. We have little doors, middle doors, large doors. We had dancers moving around. We have some pictures. I wish we could bring the video, because it's a lot easier to see. This first picture that I'm going to, Arnold, I just press right here. Okay, this is Margo Sappington. Margo Sappington was a classical ballet trained dancer. But she did a lot of work, and she's still doing a lot of work on Broadway. So she has done choreography that is out of the box, and she have used music out of the box, but that audiences can recognize. I press the same button. Sorry, I'm a little technically challenged here. Tweedledum, Tweedledee with Alice. Very funny, because they juggle. And we did have at the time, we still have those two dancers, they know how to juggle. And of course, the Alice that we had at the original Alice could not juggle. So we used that. She couldn't juggle. So we used that in that scene. The second time that we did Alice, we had a dancer that could juggle. So we changed that scene a little bit. Here we have the Queen of Hearts and the rabbit. So in the Queen of Hearts, we do have all the cards, and the Queen of Hearts is doing the croquet game, which we have the flamingos and the hedgehogs. Very cute, very theatrical. And she wanted to, Margo Sappington said to me, you know, I would like little kids to do the little animals, but I need somebody that is actually very artistic. She wanted to audition. I said, don't audition. I have a student for you. And we brought a young girl at the time, and she followed the instructions. She knew when to stick her tongue out. She knew when to go like this, I'm going to kill you. I mean, it was phenomenal. So as we developed the story, there were very little changes, because she used the talents of each of the dancers that we had at the moment in that company, and the students at the same time. Then the other one, which is very amazing for me, is the caterpillar. Is it the caterpillar? Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Let's go back. Can I go back? How can I go back? I want to go back to the caterpillar. Can you see it there? You see the caterpillar there? So she did with 3 females and a male. And it was one of those, constantly moving. See, next time we just need an hour for the video because it is phenomenal. I have to, I am biased, I understand that, but I have to say that Margo Sappington really took my idea and she really put it into dancers. And she's such a creative artist in terms of she will see you and say, okay, you can do this, you can do that. And the caterpillar was just phenomenal. It just went back and forth, back and forth. It just out of this world. I press forward, right? For the next one? Okay, so this is the tea party. You see, so we have regular size Alice in the middle of the table. And for this, she actually used classical music. And it was one step after the other. It did not stop. By the time those 4 dancers finished with this scene, they were exhausted. Exhausted. But you see the hat, and you see, and the costumes. We wanted something that the children of all ages, because I told her that, this production has to be, it has to appeal to children. And she looked at me, to children, said, of all ages, either a 4-year-old or a 94-year-old. And that she really conveyed that into the movement. This is one of the scenes with the flowers. I believe this is the iris. So we had 2 bumblebees, and all the rest were flowers. And it was, and if you can see part of the ring in the back, so that ring red, it actually on the stage we covered the whole stage with the ring. But when we dance, the circus people move them out so that we have more space. This is the Queen of Hearts and the bumblebee and some of the cards. And this was actually quite phenomenal. And how to get the role out of each of the dancers. She worked with this special lady, Lauren, and she was phenomenal. At one point when she was doing the croquet game, she sits on the edge of the stage with a huge fan because she's exhausted fighting, and she fans, and then the rabbit takes the fan and starts fanning, and the entire audience at the Ohio Theater started laughing. They forgot about what they were watching on stage. So we used everything in the theater. The edge, we pushed the curtains out, you know. When the cards were coming onto the stage, we had a trumpeter, you call that trumpeter? Yes? And people were not expecting that, so we had him on stage doing the march. It was just phenomenal. Then we have here one of the Alice and the Rabbit, which they danced throughout the entire hour. But for us, the main character was the rabbit. He was the one telling the story. And when you see everybody, when the curtain went up and you saw everybody and you see the ring, you realize that these are circus people. And at the end, you know, like I said, at the beginning, we start with the circus closed with Alice. And she goes through the whole life, because I call it This Is Life. We all have an Alice inside of us in different ways, shape, and form. And then at the end of the show, at the end of the program, we also close a circle again, and she's reading the book. But in this time, it's the little Alice, not the middle-sized Alice. So it's the inner Alice in all of us. Do you guys, next time, Arnold, I'm telling you, we need to do the video. Because we wanted to make sure that the audience really understood. I know everybody knows the story of Alice, but to put it on the stage with dancers, it was, I don't want to say challenging, but we wanted to make sure that we were doing justice to the story, you know. And something that Margo and I and my husband talked about, we do believe, well, I do believe, that in every story that we put on stage, there's a little bit of that story in every human being. We all have curiosity. We all follow somebody at certain points of our lives, whether we do it at 4 or at 94. And that's what I wanted. I wanted, when she choreographed this, I really wanted her to be able to touch the child in all of us. And she really did a great job. We brought her back when the pandemic hit. We could not do this on the stage. So what we did, we went around on tours around here in Northeast Ohio. And this one is in Gervasi. And it was a hit because we used the gardens. We did a fundraiser at a private house in Pepper Pike, which they have a pond, they have a swing. We used the gardens and we did Alice. So we improvised, we actually improvised. And so it's just this story is just magical. For me, it's just magical. And I would like to bring this in another 3 or 4 years. Because audiences really, I had a lot of people from all different walks of life and ages say, Margo Sappington really touched my heart. It really did. And the costumes were all made in-house. So we try to follow the role and something similar that the dancers could dance with. We created. Like you can see, the rabbit is just in pants and a vest. Always wore his hat. Except when he took it out to fan himself, and the audience went crazy because the ears were there, and they took it out, and he went like that, and they went, oh my God, So we tried to do everything that we put on stage. It was magical. It was really magical. Have anybody of you guys have seen our productions?
People are here from 19 different states.
19 different states? You kidding? This is great. So have you ever seen a ballet production of Alice on stage? Yes? And what do you think?
It's magic.
It's magic, isn't it? I think I don't want to negate the fact that the theater versions are good. I don't want to negate that fact. But when you have movement, dancers, and it's just a different level. It just brings the magic, When we brought the silk and it started moving like that, everybody went, wow. And then underneath there's dancers that come out and dance. It was really, for me, I think it was really magical. The chest-tired cat was phenomenal. He had a huge fan, and he danced with the entire fan. Yes, somebody had a question. Yes.
Yeah, you just mentioned a ballet version.
Yes.
Alice in Wonderland. And have you seen the Canadian?
Of course I have.
Yeah. We didn't get the opportunity to see it at the Kennedy Center, and this might be a little controversial, but I thought it was one of the best tellings of the story.
Of course.
And it was in dance.
No, it's not controversial, but you're right. I think when dancers tell this story, especially this story, it's clear, and they can move. And there are things that you can read, but then a lot of people cannot visualize that. But when they see it on stage in a movement, they go, oh, wow. The cat is doing flips over, things like that. The chest tire and the rabbit. The rabbit is actually doing jumps like a rabbit, but you see them. It's very, very, very. I like the story. It's very appealing to our own creative self. Do we have? Yes, please.
Really, two questions. Could you just mention some of the pieces of music?
Pieces of music.
Okay. Well, okay. I'll do 2 questions. Maybe the examples of some of the music you used, but more. How do you compare your way of using ballet to tell a story with other adaptations of stories in ballet? Just what did this teach you in general about the way ballet adapts a fantasy story? But starting with the music.
First of all, we had different. I wish I could have brought the music. First of all, when you are trying to tell a story on stage, you cannot change the story. That's there. You need to find a way of conveying words into movement. And there is a correlation between words and movement. Because if you take the story and you start moving around, you can read and you can start moving, you find yourself doing steps that go with the verb, with the words. So in the way that we create, that's the rule of thumb. Never change the story, never change the sequence either. You can change certain things, but never change the sequence, because then you confuse the audience. Then you do not respect whomever wrote the story, and you have to respect that. Then to another level, then you have the choreographer. You have to respect hers or his vision in how to do the movement to the words. So it goes together. The music, I wish I would have brought music to listen to. Arnold, next time tell me that. Let me see, we use codas. I am a terrible singer. We use waltzes, we use Mozart, we use many different, she chose many different styles. You know, for the garden section, she went more jazzy. For the tea party, it was very classical. For the march, we brought the trumpet, you know. So she tried to keep it according to the movement and the story. I promise you, next time I'll bring you the music. Yes?
If you're not changing the story, what were Tweedledee and Tweedledum doing there?
I know. You're right. You're right. But we needed to do something a little bit more funny after she cried. And she did ask for that. She said, what do you think if I do this? And I said, you know, you can add. You're not changing the story. You're actually going from a sad moment of crying into a happy moment. And that's what she wanted to do. And we talked about it, and it made sense at the time. Good question. When we first choreographed Alice, it was presented in the Ohio at Playhouse Square, the Ohio Theater. We wanted to do it again because when the pandemic came, we did not stop working. We just had to think outside of the box. So what we did, we found places, outdoor places, in which we can bring productions like this. And we did. We found Gervasi, and the gardens there and the lake that they have was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. So it wasn't just rehearsals that were done outdoors?
No, this is full performances.
Yeah, it seems to me with the start of the story being outdoors, you know, by a riverbank and the rabbit down the hole, and it kind of has that nice garden atmosphere.
It did. I mean, we actually, last night we were at an event in which the owner of the house has this beautiful, I believe it's 5 or 4 acres of beautiful land. And my husband said, look at this. And I said, this is Alice. And I said, yep, this is Alice. So we're planning to do that in that place. Because there are certain productions. Alice is one. Midsummer Night's Dream is another one that we can actually do outdoors. And it's only an hour, you know, and it goes so fast, you know. So it's entertainment.
For those who are not from Northeast Ohio, Gervasi is a winery.
It's a winery.
Yes,
Yeah.
so that adds another element.
So you've got other plays coming up other than Alice, or are you going to stay with Alice for a few more years, or what do you suspect?
In our industry, when we create something, let's take example Alice, we commission, we do it, let's say in the spring or the fall, and we should not do it again for another 2 to 3 years, just to give a full circle, because you don't want to do that every year. Our industry doesn't work that way. The only production that we do every year is Nutcracker, because you know it's a family and friends, and everybody knows Tchaikovsky, and it's but not everything else is done. It repeats 2 to 3 years in increments. Yeah,
but what I'm saying that you said you didn't change much, but you're bringing the rabbit as a connector to all the things. That's a big change. But if you bring rabbit all the time, the other characters doesn't get importance. In Alice's book, each character is important.
but if you see the video,
Huh?
if you see our production, each character has an importance. It's just that the rabbit is there to unify every single scene on stage. He's not the main character, he's the main storyteller in our production.
Just a cat.
I mean, sorry, the rabbit, yes. The rabbit, yeah. And it is, in this instance, it made a lot of sense because the rabbit has a lot of energy. You know, and he's the one that actually gets Alice to go through all this curiosity. If it wasn't for the rabbit, Alice would not be experiencing all this. So each choreographer has an interpretation of how to make the movement and how to tell the story without jeopardizing the story. And she saw the rabbit as a storyteller. Because if it wasn't for the hole, the rabbit jumping, Alice would have never gone in there. She would have continued playing with the butterflies that we had at the beginning. So it kind of makes sense in this instance.
It's not a question, it's regret. It's a pity Tchaikovsky did not compose Alice ballet.
Well, I think you're right.
In this case, you would run it forever, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. But but I have to say that, you know, that she chose music that it was very in tune with each character. And not only in tune with each character, with the movement that she put into that character. And I really wish, I'm sorry, I didn't even think about that, but the music, more than the videos, would have brought to you a different perspective of the movement or what the story that she put together. But she used different, and it was actually very nice.
And actually he worked on Nutcracker with Petit Pas.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. But Tchaikovsky is one of those masters, you know. He did actually he created such an incredible music for ballet. I mean, just phenomenal. Just one of those masters that we don't have anymore. Even though I met one that is working with us, she doesn't consider herself a master, but she's a master composer. We just have somebody in our staff right now, Anna Siegel from Israel, and she is just phenomenal composer, phenomenal. We commissioned her to do, away from this story, we commissioned her to do a piece of music for our spring performance this year. And what she came up with, we were just stunned. We couldn't find choreographers to choreograph to that music because it was just above our abilities. But we did find somebody we found somebody, but we do have a master. So maybe I'll ask her to create music for Alice for the next time. You just gave me a suggestion. Yeah.
And can we see the video on YouTube or some?
Actually, you know, if you go visit our website, I do believe that there are segments of Alice in that website, clevelandballet.org. Yeah, we have it there. And if you don't, you know, I have a card. I can actually send you certain pieces of it, because it is actually, I have to say, it is different than a lot of other ballet companies that have created this ballet. It's completely different. It is actually, I don't want to use the word entertainment, but it's very engaging. It's really engaging. She did not make characters ugly. She didn't make them nasty. She just made them to really engage with the audience.
I just want to say thank you, because when you were doing your ballet, you may remember we had our shop up at the arcade. And
oh, yes.
We had a tea party.
Yes.
And first we went to the ballet. It was absolutely wonderful. Everyone enjoyed it, from the music to the dancers to the choreography to the story. A wonderful interpretation. And then the treat was, though, when we had our tea in the arcade. If you're from Cleveland, you'll know it was built in 1890. But they all came. The table was stretched across the arcade, and we had grand chairs at each end. And Michael, and you've blessed us with the presence of two of the Alices. You know,
yes.
There was a small Alice and a
and
medium-sized
Alice,
Alice,
yep.
and a tall Alice. And the tall Alice and I believe the medium size came to the tea and joined us. And thank you. That was a treat for all of us.
Well, thank you for having us at your shop.
Hi there. Thank you so much for this presentation. This looks amazing. And I just had a couple questions. One, has this traveled to New York, or is there a plan for it to travel to New York?
You know, you say that, and I am going to talk to you from my heart. Yeah. When my husband and I decided to incorporate this new Cleveland Ballet into now 9 years ago, we always have the vision of touring. And we are creating works that are being created here. We're bringing artists from around the world here to create, but with the idea of going to New York, going to Europe, going to South America. So this is why our productions are not like 3 hours long. You cannot do that.
Yeah.
The audience attention span has changed, you know, and we try to make stories for 1 hour or 45 minutes and then another 45 minutes. And yes, I would like to take this to New York. It will be phenomenal because it's very artistic. It is ballet, classically trained dancers, but it's also theater. So, of course, I would love to take it to New York. You know somebody that can actually take us there?
I wish I did. But my second question is, I know this is such a wonderful story. There doesn't seem to be a lot of love for adapting Looking Glass, though. Is that ever been something on your radar or no? To expand the story and add that with those characters?
Not at this moment. Not at this moment, because we take in consideration, you know, the industry and where the industry is, where the audience is looking for. I don't want to say that the audience does not understand. I don't want to say that, but the attention span of the audiences of today, because of all the social media and IT and all the computers, and is completely different. So we are in the process. We're still continuing to create a production or a performance that is enough time for somebody to enjoy and leave with saying, I want it more. And with Alice, we did that. When it ended, they were like, that's it? We want more. So maybe, you know, it all depends.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very, very
Arnold,
much.
thank you so much.